Thanks for listening to the Mining Pod. Want more? Subscribe to our main feed on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever else you get your podcasts for another weekly show on Bitcoin stocks. And check out our newsletter at miningpod.blockspace.media today. Hey, welcome back to the Mining Pod. We're doing the news roundup live this week, and it's just Matt and I, like old times. Matt, how you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing well. Never been live before. It's like a rush. I've never felt. It's crazy.
It is a rush. I did a live show at the CoinDesk for almost 3 years, so it's actually my native format. We've been doing it more at the Mining Pod because there's been so much breaking news, which is today. There's like a billion headlines we could certainly choose from. So we're gonna rock with a bunch today. You can catch this now on live stream on X, YouTube, or LinkedIn, and then of course we're gonna have a audio only version of this later. You can find on Apple, Spotify, etc. As always, check out blockspace.media for any sort of written content. We'll be using a lot of our pieces from this week. We had 2 big scoops this week, Matt. So we'll go through those in quite a second, but we got to go first to the difficulty update brought to you by Matt Kimmel.
I didn't know I'm now sponsoring the difficulty update.
No, there's no sponsor yet.
I am looking forward to whatever news you break. Oh, sweet.
One day we'll have a sponsor. But yeah, we'll go through the difficulty update, and then we'll go through all the other news segments that are in the headline.
Yeah, difficulty just keeps breaking all-time high. And so basically where we're at now is we're expected to have another adjustment in 3 days. On the 15th is the target currently, estimated to go up 3%, which I know people aren't excited to hear about. But if you look at hash price, because the price has just precipitously kept going up, it is kind of in a nice area compared to the time at least between now and the halving. We're at let's see, I'll check. We are in the 60s, I believe. We are exactly $64 per petahash per day, according to Hash Rate Index. So decent weather out there in the hash price environment, but yeah, nice. Expecting a increase here in a couple of days.
Okay, well, that is your difficulty report brought to you by Matt Kimmel. Okay, we are going to be talking about this, that, and the other thing this week. I'm in New York now recording these shows, so if you're in the New York area, give me a little shout out. Give me a pub key. I'll certainly be doing some more interviews there, and you'll probably be hearing a little more car honking in the background, which doesn't happen quite as often in Colorado, but it's New York. Everyone's furious here. We're going to be going through Hut 8's new data center. This was actually scooped on the Mining Pod Twitter account. I tweeted this out, and I didn't really realize how big of a thing it was. I wish I had actually done some mental math, but essentially a local news agency was like, hey, this company Hut 8 is going to be building a $12 billion campus in our small town. And I was like, that's cool. So I tweeted about it. And then later I realized that was 6x the market cap of Hut 8 right now. So that probably should cross my brain. So we'll go through Hut 8, and then Crusoe just announced their Series D funding for $600 million, which is a crazy raise led by Founders Fund. So we'll go through that. And then Riot has an activist investor issue, similar to how they were haunting Bit Farms for a while. So we get to talk about that scoop from the Wall Street Journal. And then we'll finish up with our beloved Cry Corner, this time involving PNUT the squirrel, aka PNUT token. But let's first go to this Hut 8 story, which I'll bring up on screen. Okay, Hut 8 plans 1,000 megawatt tier 3 data center in Louisiana, seeks hyperscaler partner. We published this on the Blockspace website. We can take a look at this video really quick and then jump right back into the story.
New tonight, a major project could have a huge economic impact for Louisiana. It's an AI data center in West Feliciana Parish. News 2's Gabby Davis has the plans.
I mean, we'll be able to fix roads. We'll be able to, help a lot of people. There's drainage issues and all of those sorts of things. These things are stuff that we'll be able to do.
HUT-8, an energy infrastructure operator, wants to build the data center off of Highway LA 964.
This gives West Louisiana a real opportunity to get ahead of the game and do some really smart planned growth that's going to continue to allow West Louisiana to be boutique and do very well at it.
Parish President Kenny Havard says this will bring 1,500 to 2,000 construction jobs to the area.
There'll be several hundred other permanent jobs, very high end, anything that you would see in a plant, basically you're going to see here. Office spaces, and of course, tax dollars, revenues that we'll see from it.
Phase 1 of the project will be $12 billion and is planned to be completed by the end of 2025.
There's going to be 2 buildings that are about 450,000 square foot each.
There's going to be instrumentation jobs. There's going to be electrical jobs. There's going to be welders. There's going to be pipe fitters. There's going to be any and everything that you can think of.
The project is privately funded, and officials don't have estimates on tax revenue.
Going to be a game changer for this area, for this whole region.
Parish officials will vote on the rezoning of the project January 6th. Michael.
Okay, nice little report there. So we pulled that from them, tweeted that out. We reached out to HUD-8 for comment, no comment. And then in between, there's been some speculation. You can see here that Meta, aka Facebook, might be involved. There is nothing at this time to indicate that there is any relationship between this huge data campus and Meta. Meta does work down the road about 2 hours, so there's some speculation there. Maybe that comes about. This is a huge data center, Matt, like 1 gigawatt, tier 3 for HPC AI. HUD-8 has obviously dabbled in this sort of thing before, but quite the move. Before I hand it off to you, let's take a look at HUD-8's chart, which has been doing pretty well, up 16% on the day. Any thoughts on this one?
Market is responding positively, clearly. Quick thought on this is initial reaction for me on the video that you just played. It's neat to see the local government there basically embracing from a standpoint of tax revenue and jobs created. And, zero mention of basically like noise pollution or environmental effects, which, it's interesting to see just what different news stories come out and on different levels of, media distribution and delivery.
Yes.
But yeah, I think that's pretty cool to see an embrace there. $12 billion is a mind-boggling number, and I think it was what a gigawatt was the potential capacity. So we're looking at like 12 million per megawatt build out, if I did my math correctly. That's I guess an interesting thing to note. But yeah, major move. If Meta is involved, an even bigger, news story. But
yeah,
what were your immediate thoughts?
$12 million, that fits into the range that we hear oftentimes for how expensive these things are to build out. Does not seem like it's going to have any Bitcoin mining per the zoning application that HUD-8 put into the parish. We reached out for comment. They declined to comment on this news. I don't think they really want this to get out there, but picked up by the locals, and they're obviously pretty excited. Bring 2,000 jobs to the area. It's a big job story. And then Matt, I like what you said. Like, there's not many complaints about noise and things like that. Maybe because it's an AI HPC story, and I think people know ChatGPT at this point and stuff like that. So there seems to be less frustration around that. The energy usage, you don't hear much about that,
One question: did it say when the project will be complete? Is it next, like late next year or something?
Yeah, it'll be the first part is 250 megawatts, and it's gonna be done the end of 2025, and they hope to have the whole thing done by the end of 2026. Now, that seems ambitious.
Yeah, that was my word exactly that I was thinking of. But at the same time, I mean, major bet on the future of AI demand, right? This is a 1 to 2 year out bet, and so you're expecting that you'll get the customers at that point. Major capex spend, so interesting. But miners are used to the high upfront costs of things, and so that's the game they play.
Yeah, and we'll see more in the future on the financing side of this, I am sure. It could be like the CoreWeave deal with Core Scientific, where Core Scientific opened their facility up for CoreWeave to retrofit, and CoreWeave paid for it all. I'm assuming there's something like that, because it does say in this that they're looking for a hyperscaler tenant. So, they're looking for one of the big companies to come in and be a tenant there. It probably means they're going to pick up some of the bills, because this is going to be an expensive outfit. Speaking of expensive, let us go really quickly to this Crusoe announcement. We won't stay on it too long. Crusoe closes $600 million in Series D round at $2.8 billion valuation to power AI. Funding will support the build out of Crusoe's vertically integrated, purpose-built AI cloud. So this came out this morning sometime, but you can see lots of big name investors here from Sand Hill Road, and they're punching pretty hard here. This is getting fairly large for a private company, $2.8 billion. I think that's larger than HUT, which we were just talking about. HUT's public. Any thoughts on this Crusoe raise?
I was going to say, as background, Crusoe, reminder that they were in the nat gas, stranded gas capture and mining operations. And I think they may have done a short stint in demand response in Texas. Well, you could correct me on that. But been around for a while. I wonder what their Series B, Series C funding and valuations were at. But this is, again, another big splash going into the AI space with a lot of money to do it, right?
Yeah, so they've done a few things in the past, and they're mostly well known for their gas capture tech. And they've been in like a lawsuit with Upstream Data over that over the last little bit. But they've more and more been pivoting to on-grid stuff. I mean, they certainly have a lot of Bitcoin mining and some AI HPC using stranded gas resources, which is, again, how they kind of came to fame, where they go into Silicon Valley and ask for investor money because they're like, we are a climate tech solution. And they weren't a Bitcoin miner, they're a climate tech solution. And that resonated with investors to the tune of $600 million for this Series D. More and more, they've been doing on-grid stuff. So I know they've looked at stuff in Texas, they've looked at stuff in New York, and they've been looking for those sort of solutions where you come in as a Bitcoin miner, you have all this industry knowledge, and you're able to retrofit a site and turn it around for AI HPC. In this disclosure on their press release, they do talk about how they have tons of different clients and customers. I think they said they have 6x their customer base. Let's see, it's all the way down at the bottom. Customer count grew by 7x in the past 12 months, and they're now operating 9 states, 3 countries, including Iceland. So they be growing. Let's leave that one there unless you have any other thoughts on it. Just wanted to make a mention of it. Our biggest news story of the week from Blockspace side of the world is this DCG scoop we got. So, Matt, did you read this one? Not to call you out in the live stream, but
I got the highlights. Do you want me to give my best?
You take it away.
Essentially, DCG's Foundry, right, which is a subsidiary of DCG, and DCG, right, historically pretty prominent in the crypto at large and Bitcoin development story as a company. Foundry had many different, I guess, business segments, revenue streams from most notably their mining pool, which really rose to prominence post China mining ban in the May-June 2021 time range. Became at one point the largest mining pool with a pretty significant share of block production. But they also did other things like I believe ran ASIC brokerage, and I believe they also did some self mining, which is relevant to the story here, which is to say that a new entity is spinning out of Foundry called Fortitude Mining, which is going to take their self-mining operations and physical infrastructure and segment it out from their pool operations. And so Foundry will keep the pool and the other business lines that Foundry was running, and Fortitude will basically split out and just simply focus on self-mining. How'd I do, Will?
Excellent. Excellent job. I think the gist of this is that the DCG empire, as it were, is maybe trying to resurrect, or perhaps this is the end of the trilogy, where Barry Silbert made this huge bet on Bitcoin, spun up all these companies when Bitcoin went parabolic, and he made a bunch of money. The crown jewel is Genesis Lending. Genesis went kaput last cycle after its 3 Arrows investments, and investments to other companies went south. It had to sell CoinDesk. It had to put Genesis away. It owed a ton of creditors money. Foundry was still there, hanging out, doing well with cash. Foundry was definitely a success story last cycle. And the fact that it was owned by DCG brought it into a bad spot. We had some great sourcing on this from Colin, who wrote this piece. And we found some numbers about how the pool has possibly had bad luck this year. It doesn't explicitly say that, but there certainly seems to be some swings in revenue quarter over quarter, which indicates bad luck. Could just be expenses. And that made things a little more difficult for 2024. But at the basis, I think DCG really wants another portco, and they want something that's more investable. So that was brought up quite a bit. And so this new company, Fortitude, will be announced likely in January. Maybe this headline getting out forces out a little earlier. Probably not, though. And we'll see a new miner come out, or at least spun out under a new name in the coming year. And perhaps that goes public and adds to the 20-something public companies that are already out there, and it would be under DCG. So I'm curious about that spin out. I'm curious how DCG is going to own a percentage of that. I'm curious if people are going to want to invest in another public mining company. This would be about the same size as like your Hives or your Cypher mining, is like in that $80 million revenue range per year based on the projected revenue for self-mining from Foundry for 2024. But yeah, that's the gist of it. We can set sail unless you have any thoughts.
But I did want to bring something up, because I just looked up a quick stat before we head to the next story about the Crusoe one. Because the Crusoe one, it was a raised Series D, the valuation at 2.8 billion. I was like, wow, that's high. I wonder what that is relative to the public listed Bitcoin mining companies. And so I just looked it up, and it would sit basically 8th on the list between HUT 8 and Cypher. But as we talked about in the first story, HUT 8 has had a 10+% day with their announcement of the AI data center. And so they as a private company, right, are pretty highly valued at this point, I guess is my point there. Still behind, of course, Marathon Core, Riot, CleanSpark, but BitDeer, TeraWolf, Iron as well.
Yeah.
And right, they're more on the AI path. So comparing them to Bitcoin miners is not a perfect thing to do. But of course, they have been a Bitcoin mining company historically. And we're just talking about pure, what is the valuation relative to the rest of the market? I just thought that might be interesting.
No, it's super interesting to see a private miner of that size. Now, for Crusoe, they build containers, they have software, they operate sites, they build sites, and they self-mine. They have AI HPC, I think, sort of as the operator, not necessarily running it themselves, but perhaps they do. So they're quite diversified in the things they take on. Okay, we're going to go over to Riot Blockchain, or Riot Platforms, as it rebranded itself about a year ago, and talk about 2 things. One, they jumped in the HODL strategy. I believe they raised about 500 million via convertible notes to be able to go and purchase Bitcoin. I made some investors really happy and some investors not happy. We'll talk about that in a second. And the second story is this one from the morning, which is a Wall Street Journal scoop concerning Starboard taking an activist position within Riot. And why are they doing that? Well, they basically want Riot to get in on purchasing more sites and being a little more active with its assets under management. Riot has a lot of cash, and so they could do a lot more. And I think that's the gist of this story. So for me, the ironic thing, of course, is like Riot was just going after Bitfarms, and we detailed that saga for the better part of 6 months. And so I made a little joke this morning that like there's always a bigger fish, like you can be chasing someone and someone's chasing you all of a sudden. There's gonna be someone chasing Starboard at some point, like maybe the market itself, if this goes sideways. I'll throw up Riot's stock on the screen here. It's been doing pretty well this morning. Let me just swap over to it. But yeah, Matt, any thoughts on these two stories?
Well, I was going to bring up the irony. You kind of took the words out of my mouth.
I did. I apologize.
Because my brain did immediately jump to the Bitfarm saga. But yeah, it's interesting. I guess what maybe is more interesting to me, because I don't know that much about Starboard, is the fact that they are deciding to take a page out of Michael Saylor's book and do the convertible debt. There is, I believe, a 75 BIP coupon on it. But it's, sizable, 500 million, I believe, in the raise. And then, but the choice, right? It's the strategic choice to say, hey, we're gonna, and I don't know if that's official. You can tell me or not. I haven't dug into all the press releases, but the strategic choice to go purchase Bitcoin instead of, putting that towards machines or a new build out, right? Other kinds of capital costs, and say that, we're going to try to basically produce Bitcoin at a, cheaper rate to the market value in the future. It's just like, I think it puts this strategy, which is like, it's not just Microstrategy anymore that's doing this. Like, we've seen Bitcoin buying amongst mining companies and raises to do it. It kind of communicates a bit just how competitive and how I guess how low margin the business is to me at this point of mining, to basically say, yeah, it's actually just better strategically for us to take this capital and just buy Bitcoin. I don't know what you think.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's the first thing that jumps into a lot of people's minds. The second thing is perhaps this notion of Saylorism, where you can purchase Bitcoin and have your NAV just be levered versus everyone else, or the multiple be so much higher. There was a really nice piece from, I believe it's Jeff Park. He's over at Bitwise. He's one of their investor analysts. And he talked about how Bitcoin miners are kind of in a weird spot, right? Where they are, yes, mining Bitcoin for lower than the cost, but we all know in the space that you're going to be diluted to have that benefit as an investor. That benefit of mining Bitcoin at a discount to spot, sometimes up to $60,000 a coin, based on some public profiles out there, comes at the cost of dilution, because they need to fund these very, very aggressive growth strategies. So there's one side of the trade. The other is, if you want to go buy Bitcoin as a Bitcoin miner, well, are you as attractive or a shiny object as, say, a MicroStrategy or a MetaPlanet or one of these other companies? It doesn't actually look like it is. And I don't understand the entire rationale for it. If I can find the tweet, I'll pull it up. But more or less, he goes through it with a bunch of like those trading terms like delta neutral and things like that, and comes to the conclusion that we're going to continue seeing this. These Bitcoin miners might buy more Bitcoin, but that doesn't mean that they're necessarily going to become more attractive than purchasing MicroStrategy or just purchasing an ETF product. Now, I do think that Bitcoin miners will continue doing it, and it will probably not hurt. I mean, Marathon is certainly doing it. They're certainly getting more people interested in their stock, and they certainly have a lot more Bitcoin on their balance sheet right now while Bitcoin continues to go up. So that's beneficial. I do think it is funny, though, that a lot of the people who have terrible operating efficiencies in Bitcoin mining are the ones purchasing Bitcoin, and those who are very good at mining Bitcoin have chosen to either pursue other strategies like AI HPC or to just continue focusing on mining Bitcoin. Like, you really haven't seen anyone divert from that path if they have very good operational efficiency. So that's one thing I'll say. And I'd love to be corrected if there's someone you can think of now, or if someone's listening can hit us up. Any thoughts?
I mean, my question is like, okay, they're probably signaling that they're going to HODL these coins. What is the ability to like time the market? I like Sailor's like, I'm going to hold forever, but
yeah,
Bitcoin miners are like, natural sellers to a degree because they have dollar liabilities. And I like they're raising to do this. Like, there's interesting implications to that, but it's like, what is the plan to, no, I'm going to HODL forever, Michael Saylor's strategy, which by the way was like, of the public listed miners last cycle, right? We saw several miners say, oh, we're going to HODL forever. And mined at kind of higher prices to then kind of be forced sellers in the downturn to pay off, their liabilities. Or is the plan to, not HODL forever and say, hey, we're going to try to kind of sell the top at the time of the market? It's an interesting question. And, there's like, I don't envy like a lot of these miners. It's a tough game to play to try to predict, what's going to happen to hash rate and price in the future. Because, one thing to consider is like you're raising money. What do you think your days to ROI on the machines that you're going to get? Or like, what depreciation schedule are you going to put on it based off of what else comes to what happens to hash rate in the future, and what new machines get released, right? And whether you need to upgrade your fleet at a certain time because they're not competitive anymore. There's a lot of things you have to weigh. And I guess we'll just see what happens, right? But there is definitely a theme of the cycle that we're going to talk about for years, right? The approach to take on convertible debt, buy coins, right? I'm looking forward to seeing it play out.
Yeah, the convertible notes thing is really interesting. I put out a few feelers to get a guest on the show to discuss it, because it does seem to be like that next level of corporate finance. I'm not able to explain to anyone with authenticity. So we'll get someone on to do that. But a topic I can explain well is Coinbase listings. So let us go to that topic for our Cry Corner. This is a great one. I wish Colin was on here this week. So Coinbase Assets tweeted this out on the 11th. We're recording this on the 12th. Assets added to the roadmap today. PNUT the squirrel, aka ticker PNUT. If you go to the Coinbase blog, they are listing on the Solana network Giga Chad, aka Giga, and PNUT the squirrel, aka PNUT tokens to Coinbase. Why did we bring this up? Well, Cry Corner allows us to branch out into different topics within the crypto ecosystem. And I think we should take a moment just to discuss how ridiculous some of these listings on Coinbase are getting as we get deeper into a bull run. Now, remember last cycle where Coinbase was honestly pretty tight with some of its listings. And they do this disclosure process. They normally write on the blog when they're going to list a new asset, and they tweet about it. And we normally have a Coinbase pump that happened with a bunch of meme coins throughout the last 6 months. There's normally a Binance pump, then there's a Coinbase pump, and then there's a Robinhood pump. And then it's kind of either going to make it or not make it at that point. Why is Coinbase doing this though? Like, what is the benefit of putting their name next to PNUT token? It's certainly a meme coin super cycle, but I don't see how that helps them out in the long run. And I do think like staying a little more disciplined with their asset listings and not putting like PNUT and GigaChat on there does help them out. And there's plenty of different applications where you can trade these things easily, like pump.fun. It's a very good example of that. So this doesn't really like perform a service for anyone in crypto, because honestly, there's almost easier ways to trade these tokens. The only thing that this really does for Coinbase is perhaps help onboard those meme coin speculators who want to liquidate their tokens on Coinbase for some reason. and or just get people who are already locked into the app to start flipping these tokens. Coinbase gets the market making fees and the listing fees and whatnot. But I'm not a huge fan of this. I kind of want the old Coinbase back. Like, focus on the tokens that you think matter. Focus on Bitcoin. Got any thoughts, Matt?
I don't have much thoughts about Coinbase, but I am just through a quick Google a bit enthralled by the PNUT story. So I just want to share the
The PNUT story is
paragraph
good. I'm not a hater of the PNUT story.
the first paragraph of the Wikipedia story. I just feel inclined to share it. It's pretty well written. It says PNUT, also known as apostrophe nut, which is the name of the coin, right? Was a male eastern gray squirrel found and rescued as a kit by Mark Longo in 2017. He was the subject of a popular Instagram account. On October 30, 2024, PNUT was seized from Longo's home by the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation and euthanized soon after for rabies testing. PNUT's death triggered outcry on social media, condemnation from various lawmakers, and the introduction of a bill aimed at preventing similar incidents in the future. Now, my investigative journalism is not complete yet. I have now gone to CoinGecko just to see, okay, this coin, what is actually going on with it? How long has it been around? And it seems to have launched on November 2nd, 2024. Reminder, Wikipedia says poor PNUT the squirrel was euthanized on October 30th, so shortly after. But if you had to guess the market cap of this coin pinned to this storied squirrel, what would you guess, Will?
The market cap for this squirrel?
Yep.
It's got to be 10 million at this point.
Oh, Will.
No.
This storied squirrel
No.
market cap is 1.28 billion.
What?
1.28 billion. Now I'm going to go back because I have this tab open already from the stories earlier and see where on the Bitcoin public listed miner rankings would this squirrel be.
Oh,
now let me tell you, it would rank as 11th. It would rank behind Phoenix Group and ahead of Bitfarms, Bitfufu, and Kanon is
that's
where
disgusting.
Mr. Peanut the squirrel would rank.
Mr.
Which
Peanut.
kind of poses the question, whose cry corner is this?
Sheesh. Mr. Peanut.
Man.
Yeah, that's crazy that you can build a $12 billion data campus for AI HPC, and yet a meme token is just going to run laps around your market cap. Just wild.
Speculation cometh.
So I am in favor of like speculative fund tokens, for the record. I don't get why Coinbase is doing this, because they're kind of like the premier American crypto company, but they don't do that. They're all in on the meme coins, so whatever. Okay, while we were recording this, or right before we were recording this, rather, Texas did announce that they're going to do they're going to introduce into legislation a Bitcoin reserve. So that's kind of cool. I don't think we need to get into it, but I will note that your home state, Matt, is doing some good jobs down there. You guys are working hard.
I love a positive Bitcoin bill in my state. It's very good. I mean, interesting, right? I believe another state also did a similar thing a couple weeks back. It'll be interesting if this becomes a trend.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, if bigger pensions decide that a part of the portfolio they're running, they should have even just a modest allocation to Bitcoin.
Yes.
That brings significant demand to the space. Significant demand. So it's good for it's wild. Maybe it's a Bitcoin season 2 thing, but it puts like a bigger question on the space of, is Bitcoin ready for nation states, the biggest companies in the world, to have have incentives with the network and the protocol. Is it ready for that? And it's a debate, I would think. I don't have an answer off the top of my head, but that's a watershed moment when that happens. That's like the suddenly, right? In the gradually then suddenly.
Nice. Yeah, no, I mean, there's going to be a lot with Texas legislation over the next 3 months. I believe everyone comes in after Christmas, right, Matt? So typically there's a lot of Bitcoin legislation. The reserve would be a huge one, but there's expectations around ERCOT and Bitcoin miners as well. So we shall stay tuned for that. And the mining pod is the best place to get that information. We do 3 shows per week, and we'll have some cool shows. Colin Harper flew out to Bitcoin Mina and did some in-person podcasts there. So our treat. We took the long flight for you guys, and we'll bring the conversations back on the podcast for later this month. For now, you guys have a good weekend, and we will see you later. Thanks for joining on the live stream. Peace.
I'm going to go short.